These are my top 10 tips for a great painting day. First, we have to start with composition. That's really where everything starts. Everything's got to begin. That's why when I'm looking for a scene, I'm almost sort of going around the world. And this may not make sense to a lot of people, but it's as if I've got blinkers on for the mid-distance and then the distance. So really, I'm trying to look for foregrounds. For me, that's the most important part, especially when we think in terms of that's the shape that is closest to us. So that's the one that we need to really have the most knowledge, the most information in. Because when you think we've got a one-dimensional board, we're trying to create that illusion of depth. Even though when we think of composition, we are thinking of placement of primary focal points, secondary and tertiary, but there's also a little side one, design. And that can be the big shapes, how they're designed, the size of every big shape, and how they interlock as well. So that's where small little business card sized little sketches, tonal sketches, line drawings, or I did like to, especially the really good subjects, the ones that I thought, you know what, I'm more than likely going to paint this either in a week or a month or a year's time. I'll do an hour's drawing or an hour and 15 with 2B to about 4, 5B pencils, just so I really flushed that idea out. This was magnificent earlier on. I don't get the time, or I guess I probably don't have the full need to have to do it, but doing as much research, preparation, even actually flipping, mirror reversing your image before you start. Even if you're out painting, you can photograph it, mirror reverse it, flip it upside down, just to be able to see those tonal values from the distance to the foreground. That's hugely important. They're all the things that when I'm walking around looking for something to paint, that's what I'm thinking about. So then the next one is editing and eliminating, especially with sort of even interiors, street scenes, urban scenes. The landscape's a classic one. So often you'll see a painter or a person go out and they'll paint everything from the one side of their vision to the other side of the vision, putting everything in. I remember a very experienced artist actually put an old dead tree right in the middle of the landscape, and I thought, boy, just an inch or two either way would have been far better or perfect. So it's very easy to do, is to get the editing, and ultimately it might have been better to have eliminated that. But I am eliminating probably at least 10, sometimes 15% from what I see, because most times we really just need that good primary, secondary and tertiary, and once I have them working, the rest is kind of academic. So then that sort of leaves us with an ability to be able to really analyse what's the most important, and that's where actually a little bit of still life practice, doing just simple little 6x8s and trying to do them fast in say 30, 45 minutes, so that you get a quick response to there's the shapes, what do I actually need? What do I, and ultimately what can I leave out? Because most of the time it's what we're leaving out is more important than what we're putting in. So once I've got my composition, I've edited and eliminated everything that I don't want, that's when it's really up to looking at the shapes. So I'm doing the actual painting and I'm putting in those big shapes first. I think the best way to explain this is if you're doing life drawing, especially if you've got a view of the back or the torso, you'll be putting in that big long line of the spine or the shoulders coming across, the placement of the head, because there's nothing worse than painting for 2 hours and then thinking, say if it was a figure, oh no, I haven't got the face in the center of the two shoulders. You may have it pushed one way. So if this came from a bit of an experience in the south of France, I did a small little watercolor on site. I actually had my injured finger, so I thought still was pretty sore, so I'll do a little oil back in my room where I've got that little bit more time. And unfortunately, without a digital phone there to be able to see the mistakes that I'd made, it was a street scene, so I had 1/3, another third, and then another third, and it was, if I laid it down, you would have thought I was looking at a pedestrian crossing or a crosswalk. I made them all equal size shapes. So that's where I realized, put the drawing in, put those basic block-in shapes, and then check before you go on any further. So from that moment, I was pleased with the way I painted the oil, but not the way that I composed or I had arranged those shapes. So then the next one is a biggie. We've got edges. So once I've started to get the painting, those big shapes in, I've done the second stage, even though I do need to know where my sharpest edge is going to be. And that normally, without fail, is in the primary focal area. That will have my sharpest edge and my lightest light and darkest dark in that area. Edges is something that we will, like our brush mark, it's something that you can improve every painting. You can improve a little bit more each year, and you'll be able to get better and better as you go along. So it's something that we need to know and study, and that's where it's great to study, say, Richard Schmid's work or some of your favorite artists' work who paint in the genre or the style that you like to paint, because I can almost assure you that they've got their edges working really well, and their placement of their sharpest and then softest and softest edges. And the other thought process, if we line up the 4 golden mean points and think we want most of the information, if we were to have drawn an imaginary circle, we want most of the information inside that circle, so then everything else will be tertiary and beyond. So we'll be looking at reducing that as well. So we've got that going well for us. My next step is color. And there is one thing as to the local color, the mother color of the actual color. So if we're painting a orange roof building, I need to know how to get that particular orange. And you can have yellow oranges, red oranges. So remember, it's all a spectrum, but we need to know how to get that local color of every little shape, every little leaf, every little wall, road, every little thing, bit of water has its own local color. So we need to know how to mix and match and get that particular color, but also we need to look at color saturation, use of color. If I'm going to be using orange rooftops, we may be wanting purpley blues or bluey purples, just so we use color in a complementary fashion as well, so that we don't have it all just monochromatic or saturated in too much red or too much blue. So that's super duper important as well. And coming from a colorist, that's something that I'm still working on, and I was quite good at mixing color even as a 19-year-old before I started painting. So that is something that we can keep enhancing, and I've even added phthalo glue to my repertoire to help enhance my use of the ability to be able to cool colors, gray colors, and also get a different color variation to my painting, which I think once you've painted for a while and you've got all these steps almost in train, they're almost like you know that you can don't have to think too hard about them, but you'll always find there's something that you miss. Making our mark is super duper important as well. That's for me the artistic part. That's the one that you can read about everything else, you can study, you can view, you can look at, but it's the hands-on. I guess we have to mix that paint, but when we apply it, that's the artist's voice, that's the artist's handwriting, that's our thing that I like to think we're really making our mark when we're putting that paint down. And there is a little bit of a limit when we think diagonal, vertical, horizontal, slight little circular swirling motions. So that's where I'll experiment with using edges and putting the paint flat on and rolling the brush just to see what I can extract. That's where I sort of like to think the brush as the bow of a violin. If I was a violinist, I'd be trying to develop a different sound and a sound that I respond to. So for me, that's what I'm doing with the brush. I'm trying to excise a certain particular feel and almost abstraction as well. I'm trying not to go too uniform with my brush mark, as I like to sort of always think regularity of the same mark breeds visual boredom. So we want variation with a little bit of exacting brush mark. So then we'll go on to simplification. That's where the big brush is probably the greatest tool in our repertoire. A lot of people want to either paint loose or they want to paint and simplify their work, and big brushes to start. So the size 12 hog hair to start with. We want to get those brush marks and those texturized marks onto the board, onto the surface or canvas. And that's when I'll use my synthetic brushes to remove and to simplify, especially the backgrounds, getting more detailed, more texture, and then more information. But that's where it comes with a little bit of editing and eliminating as well. I think the idea of simplification really, once again, is enhanced with doing some still life. The ability to be able to get that one value when we're, say, doing a small still life. So if it's a simple little object, say a wine bottle that's very dark, to be able to get that value, and it comes to the thought process, spatial awareness, to be able to get that value in, and then it starts to build up a life of its own almost. It mimics and it's replicated what I'm looking at, and that's how I know that I don't need to bring all the bells and whistles. When your painting is getting out of control, you're not sure when to finish, it's normally because you didn't have that initial idea in mind before you started. And so you're painting along almost like you're going on a long drive without a GPS map. Someone might have mentioned to you how to get there. And as all human memory, we can easily either forget or be wrong. Knowing where I want to finish is like having satellite phones, the state-of-the-art GPS. It's going to, voice activated, is going to take me directly to where I need to go. So that's where I need to know how much simplification I'm going to be bringing and how much I'm leaving out. And one little aspect that I think a lot of people don't do or don't do enough, and it is something that I can sort of drift out a little bit, is retreating or getting back, standing back from your painting. And I call it the 2-foot disease. What I can see and view when I'm painting looks great at 2 feet, but when you step back, it can all collapse and fall apart because it's all too detailed or all too many small shapes that don't work globally. We're always working locally, but we need a balance between the both. So that's where I find, and now that my eyesight's not 20/20 anymore, it's apparently 19/19, I will retreat and walk back to about the 2 meters on a small painting, 3 meters on a bigger one, which is about 6 feet to 9 feet. But I'm also walking back a little slower now just so that my focus can stay clear and accurate. But I've also noticed sometimes I race back, have a quick look and go back into it without actually properly processing what's happening. So, and it was just happening yesterday with my painting. I thought, I've got to be patient and really assess, is this working? What's not working? What do I need to do next? To me, it's that important that I always feel if I'm not sure what to do next, I always find the answer when I get back. That's super duper important. And actually, I did probably mean to talk about the light and dark and warm and cold as well. So I will bring that in. We want to be thinking light and dark first. That's the automatic reflex action that you need. Then we think warm and cold, and that's almost like thinking color second. We want to think as if we're doing a monochrome, a drawing first, so we think light and dark. When I slip out of that and not getting back and taking my time, that's when I know that my painting day will suffer a little. And knowledge is power. That's the one thing that I think, I remember my father saying, imagine if every musician, actor, artist, or even inventor was put in a cave, locked away from the world, where they couldn't see what anyone else has done in human history. Our human evolution would be nowhere near where we are today. Like music, like the Beatles, I've seen some interviews where Paul McCartney would say that he's learnt from the great musicians, Mozart and Chopin and all the great musicians. So we can learn from Velasquez, Rembrandt, Sargent, Duran, Streeton, all the great painters. So get yourself educated. That will help just broaden your knowledge base, but also keep you inspired and keep that positive reinforcing of good or great ideas. And it gives you an idea when we're thinking about simplification and knowing where to finish, that helps inform that part of the brain as well. And to finish on, I love the saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get with my painting. And that's why I find if I've had a bit of a break, it can take me 5 paintings or sometimes 2 or 3 weeks to really get back. But it's not only just the hand dexterity, it's the mental toughness. Painting I was doing last week and yesterday, 2 very complex paintings, both I sort of shuddered to think, do I have the mental toughness to get through this painting today, or do I need to admit defeat and come back another day? But I knuckled down, and that's why actually having some really difficult paintings that failed can actually be more helpful than an easier painting or a different painting that worked like a beauty. And because it is in those hard days that we toughen ourselves up, that's when I'm normally learning the most. That's when I'm needing to scratch and scrounge and look for answers. That's when I'm really putting myself under pressure, needing to really extract that last little bit out of myself. Hope you enjoyed this. This is my general view of how I paint, and it's my guide to every painting that I've done ever since I've started painting, and I believe gonna stand the test of time as well. And you may actually be even able to find some little subtleties on it yourself. All the best. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.